Files from the Heavens Artemis 2 is the first manned mission to the moon in more than 50 years. For astronauts will fly around the moon to help people get ready for a long-term presence on the moon for scientific discovery and exploration. The 10-day test flight will show off a number of crewed deep space exploration skills. The mission will show that the Orion spacecraft is ready to keep astronauts alive in deep space and give the crew and ground teams a chance to practice important tasks that will help future missions succeed. On launch day, the Artemis 2 crew gets ready, goes through final checks, and rides in the crew transportation vehicles to Celestial Files Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where they will launch from Launch Pad 39B, NASA's 322-foot-tall Space Launch System, SLS, rocket. With the Orion spacecraft on top, is waiting for the crew on a mobile launcher. It made the 4-mile trip from the vehicle assembly building to the pad on the crawler transporter. The launch team fills the SLS propellant tanks with more than 700,000 gallons of liquid hydrogen and oxygen. They also check the avionics, communications, and guidance systems. The hydrogen burn-off igniters go off 12 seconds before takeoff. The rocket's 4RS 25 engines start up about 6 seconds later. When the countdown ends, the umbilicals pull back, and the SLS and Orion crew can start their journey. The moon rocket weighs 6 million pounds and pushes with 8.8 million pounds of thrust to speed up toward space. The two 17-story solid rocket boosters give off 75% of this power, with each one giving off 3.6 million pounds of thrust. The boosters are let go about 2 minutes in after their solid propellant has been used up. The core stage and its RS-25 engines are still pushing Orion and the crew into space. After 3 minutes, the protective fairings that cover Orion's service module are blown off, revealing its solar panels. 6 seconds later, Orion's launch abort system is thrown out. The crew is now safely in Earth orbit, but they could still abort using the engines of the service module. The SLS core stage engines shut down about 8 minutes after launch. The interim cryogenic propulsion stage, ICPS, and Orion then separate from the core stage. The ICPS and Orion are now flying on their own. Orion's 4 solar panels open up, providing power to the spacecraft and charging its batteries for when it goes out of direct sunlight on the way to the moon and back. After 90 minutes in orbit, the engine of the rocket's upper stage, or ICPS, starts up to lift Orion to a high Earth orbit. The Artemis 2 crew and mission control in Houston then began a systems check that lasted almost 24 hours. The astronauts were still relatively close to Earth, so they could get used to their new home for the next few days. Music. When Orion reaches high Earth orbit, it separates from the upper stage. The used ICPS and Orion stage adapter are the targets for a manual handling test called a Proximity Operations Demonstration. This test gets future crews ready to meet up with, dock with, and undock from other spacecraft. During the demonstration, the astronauts on Artemis 2 use cameras in their line of sight through Orion's windows to fly the spacecraft as it gets closer and then farther away, testing Orion's hardware, software, and handling. After the demonstration, data from the spacecraft is collected to check the performance of systems like life support, communications, and navigation. This makes sure that Orion and the crew are ready for the journey ahead. About 23 hours later, Orion's service module does a tranlunar injection burn, or TLI. This pushes Orion out of Earth's orbit and on a trip to the moon that lasts about 4 days. The crew's figure-8 flight path ends up being more than 230,000 miles from Earth. The astronauts keep checking the spacecraft systems and practicing emergency procedures, such as testing the radiation shelter, while they are on their trip. The Artemis 2 crew goes about 4,600 miles past the moon, making them the first people to see the far side of the moon in more than 50 years. Their observations will help us get ready for future missions to the moon. There will be a communication blackout between mission control and the spacecraft during this time. As the crew comes back from the far side of the moon, Earth's gravity pulls Orion back to Earth on a free return trajectory, making the trip last 4 days and use less fuel. The crew module of Orion separates from the service module before it enters the atmosphere. 12 thrusters keep Orion in the right position at an altitude of about 75 miles above the surface of the Earth. The crew and Orion enter Earth's atmosphere at a speed of almost 25,000 miles per hour. The crew will feel 4 times heavier than they do on Earth because they're slowing down at a rate that is 4 times the force of gravity. The heat shield on Orion protects the spacecraft from temperatures of about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about half as hot as the sun's surface. To slow its fall, Orion starts a precise deployment sequence of 11 parachutes. 3 forward bay cover parachutes first pull apart the protective thermal cover that sits over the chutes. 2 drogues slow down and steady the crew module, and then they cut free. 3 pilot chutes lift the 3 main parachutes, which are deployed at 9,000 feet and travel at 130 miles per hour. These chutes bring the crew module down to a speed of less than 20 miles per hour. Orion splashes down in the Pacific Ocean, about 50 nautical miles on the California coast, just 16 minutes after entering Earth's atmosphere. It has traveled more than 595,000 nautical miles. After the splashdown, a recovery team made up of the U.S. Navy, Air Force, and NASA comes to Orion. Before the astronauts can leave the ship, the team makes sure it's safe. Then, divers help them onto an inflatable front porch, lift them into helicopters, and fly them to the recovery ship. The ship pulls Orion back to Kennedy Space Center. The crew flies back to land after finishing their mission and steps on solid ground for the first time in 10 days. This is Artemis 2,